You're listening to The Adventuring Party, talking about gaming the Irish way.
Welcome to the party. I'm Shane.
I'm SavageMick.
I'm Eoin, and hailing from a recently unearthed Neolithic tomb, dug out by impatient archaeologists, it's one of the original Adventuring Party. Here is...
I'm Shane, as well.
Oh no! Oh no! How
Okay,
will we
if
ever
we've
tell
got
them
two
apart?
Shanes. They've got two Shanes. One of them must be an evil robot. So which is it?
Uh-oh.
Or you're
I mean, I like evil robots.
goatee.
It's just a singularity.
Check their
It's all
DNA.
good.
Do
One of
have
them
a-
will spin the other way.
I
I think
had
it's
a
pretty
goatee.
unlikely that anybody who currently listens to the Adventuring Party remembers me.
But-
Because back in my day, nobody listened to us.
Well, don't worry, nothing's changed.
A tradition we proudly uphold to this very day.
We are rapidly, speaking of tradition, we're rapidly closing in, folks, on episode 600, which this probably isn't.
I believe this will be 598.
But we're working our way up to it over a mound of dead RPGs as we go into the second episode of our bracket fight. Shane, do you want to explain? A mound,
Nick, we've
yeah.
barely even started. The casualties have not yet even begun.
Well-
This was merely so far we've only done the initial shelling. The
Okay.
real slaughter begins now.
Warmonger Shane.
This might be the most exciting thing that's ever happened to me.
Well, Shane, the new one, new Shane, or Scar. Let's go with Scar. Scar, do you want to explain how this bracket fight works for our
Okay,
audience at home
so-
and, well, for us?
I have semi-randomized 64 of the most popular RPGs of all time, according to Roll20, which is not biased at all, and put them into 32 brackets, and we will work our way down the brackets as we go. We've already had 16 entrants in the last episode. Some pretty big names were knocked out early, but yeah, we'll just go. Each round we will compare two RPGs. We'll have our four-way vote with random dice to tie break if absolutely necessary. So far only one dice roll has been needed because we're opinionated gits.
Yep.
Yeah,
that's
we'll
it.
continue on down until we get through another 16 of the best RPGs. So 8
let
rounds.
the slaughter commence. What do we got?
Okay.
Shane? And so just for one added wrinkle, that none of us have seen these brackets. We saw the original 64, but none of us have seen these brackets except for Scar. So this is a bit of a blunt fight. So with that in mind, let's go.
But we're assured that it's actually been prepared ahead of time, right?
Yeah,
Something like that.
Yeah?
And not
there's
far
an
ahead.
assurance, yes. It is coming from me, who is the only person who knows whether it's true or not.
All right, so what's the first pairing?
Okay, so we have two big juggernauts, although one is substantially more juggernauty than the other. Two classics, Battletech, or possibly Mech Warrior,
Ooh, good one.
the classic Western game of RPG mech combat. I can never remember whether Mech Warrior is... Well, no, Mech Warrior is a computer game. Is there a Battletech RPG and a Battletech war game, or...
Yes. But
Yes, that's
We're
it.
talking
Is
about the RPG
one of the
today.
longest running franchises. Not even MechWar Online could stop this franchise. That's how robust and well armored it is.
our MechWarrior Dark Age, which was sort of a nadir of collectible toy lines.
I played
But
that.
there's been a lot of battle tech over the centuries.
Yes, so
Uh,
it is.
I happen to be a big
It
fan of
is
the
a-
lore, despite having never played the game.
So, the RPG is always called Mech Warrior, and the game
Yeah,
is called
yeah.
Battletech.
Right.
Or the
Thinking now, right,
tabletop
yeah.
game is
Okay,
called
so
Yes,
Battletech.
but
Mech
so we
Warrior
essentially have
in the Battletech
Mech Warrior.
universe.
Any edition, any company that
okay.
you. Because
Okay,
it needs
come
every
on. The
advantage.
suspenders are killing me.
It needs every advantage to get because it is going up against Advanced Dungeons and Dragons First Edition.
Oh.
That was an RPG? Oh, Advanced Dungeons & Dragons. AD&D first.
Yes,
We
First
love-
Edition, written by
D&D.
Gygax.
D&D got a lot
Totally
of
not
dick,
just a
Jack.
totally not just a selection of his house rules that he glued to original D&D and threw out there.
This is easy. This is so easy. I don't know why there's this big build-up. This is like bringing out, Colin McGregor to fight a parrot. This doesn't make any sense. What's this fight all about? It's Battletech, for sure. If we're taking all of Battletech and putting it against the first sort of rubber-faced imitation of an RPG that Gygax spat out, then BattleTech all the way.
Yeah, I think I'm inclined to agree because Gygax is one of those people like, having invented role-playing games to all intents and purposes, that was a great contribution, and he should have left it at that, because after that it was like after the first Matrix film, or that kind of thing of like, you set up something great and you should have left it there before you made it terrible.
Yeah, Neo. You hack. This is the best fanfic reality you could come up with. Anyway, leaving aside the Matrix movies, you're absolutely right. Evil Robot Shane. Who's next?
Well,
bracket decided.
Eoin.
Brilliant. Let's go.
So, I think, personally, difficult. It's AD&D, I think. It's AD&D. Despite MechWarrior having 5 different editions, it's never had a super classic one, and AD&D is a crazily influential RPG. So yeah, it's AD&D.
For me, this is actually a pretty close one for me, because both of these are sort of archetypical big clunky systems. You'll very rarely find a first edition DM who will admit with a straight face that they used every single rule in that game, and that the weapon versus armor charts and the weapon speed tables were vital parts of the role-playing experience. But
Weapon speed was very good.
Wow, weapon speed. That's Dark Souls.
That made a difference in how you chose what weapon you wanted. I thought weapon speed was good.
That's some Dark Souls stuff right there. Yeah, okay, weapon speed. But if we want to talk about overly complicated weapons, like BattleTech has it.
Where you have to
Yeah, I don't know anything about the MechWarrior like game engine. How does it go? Or is that taking too much time out of this?
It's varied a lot. There's a new version now out, which is quite good. It's often sort of a dice pool system. Sometimes D60 dice pool. Sometimes I'd have to look it up. But I believe it was the last few kind of been the latest one is D6 dice pool. I'd have to do more research. I played a bit of it once. It was fine. But I just think AD&D has more historical heft to it. There's a lot of kind of classic campaigns have come out under AD&D, or certainly classic adventures. And MechWarrior, it's never really had an amazing adventure that everyone talks about. Everyone just plays their own game, which is a very cool game, often involving running a mercenary company out in somewhere. And that's a really cool idea. But I've never done it. Like, my big idea for it is to marry it with the Great Pendragon campaign or something like that.
Ooh.
But
okay.
Yeah, I mean, you're completely right about AD&D being the most influential and deserving to win, and I wish that you were wrong.
Are we?
Yeah, no, me too. Because I have a fondness for MechWarrior, a big fondness for it.
We're going to flip-flop here.
I just think, like, AD...
We're going to flip-flop.
No, he's the evil robot. We have to get this straight. I'm Scar, Barbarian King, and podcast provocateur.
And what do you rule on this one?
My
liege.
God damn it. I do love my giant robots an awful lot, but BattleTech is sort of the... Oh god, I have an entire episode worth of complaining about mech RPGs in me, but BattleTech has never been the kind that really grabbed me. I've always sort of flopped between the Gundam Macross high-speed jet fighter with fists archetype and the ridiculous super robot lasers out of every pore and, a gigantic drill and, pull off your crown and it morphs into a sword that connects to another sword. Super robot nonsense. So BattleTech's gritty realism, heat management, ammo management.
Oh, I love gritty realism. Yes, yes, heat management. That's so good.
Just say you're going to vote for AD&D so we can get out of this bracket with a dice roll.
It's a tie and we have to roll.
Are you tying?
Are we going to let some of the two biggest, dice rolling
Otherwise we're
management ones be decided on a dice roll? All right, let's say make this a tie. Okay, I'll vote for first edition, but I'm voting first edition AD&D mostly on the strength of its adventures and its, let's say, enthusiastic steps forward into the system. into the world of role playing. Like it pushed things forward into a mass market, but I wouldn't say that it's necessarily strength of the system so much as the strength of the enthusiasm behind the system, and all those lovely adventures that I keep coveting.
We have to roll a dice, don't we?
Okay.
I'm willing to concede on this one, actually. Like, AD&D is very important.
Oh,
and
betrayal. You've been betrayed, Mick. You've been abandoned.
I'm glad you flipped before I did, Evil Robot Shane. One question. Did AD&D First Ed have Keep on the Borderlands?
No, that was basic D&D.
Okay, well, I'm going to flip anyways. It's unanimously AD&D First Ed. Although it shouldn't.
Okay.
Because it's got no stomping.
Yeah, grudgingly unanimous.
Right, let's park that one in the neck and move on.
Okay, 2 more classic juggernauts in this next bracket. One is Star Wars. Now, people will say, hey, we had Star Wars last episode, but that was the D20 Star Wars. This is the original, the West End Games Star Wars D6 system.
Okay.
And it is up against the other one of the great 90s White Wolf boom, Werewolf. Although I think I put this down as either version of Werewolf, so it could either be Werewolf the Apocalypse or Werewolf the Reckoning. No, that's Hunter. Werewolf the
Forsaken.
Yes, Forsaken. That's the one. Yes, that one. I know what I am. I do RPGs.
So West End Games Star Wars taught me that I'm not as good at adding numbers up to 6 together as I would have liked to think I was. But people who like Werewolf are a bit weird.
Yeah, I guess. I ran a lot of Werewolf back in the day.
Werewolf is a tremendously angry RPG. It's brilliant at that. But like the expanded universe in Star Wars is basically started
This is
by
true.
the RPG. And so much of the setting has been expanded by that RPG.
Look what that got us.
Cannot underrate us. No, the expanded universe was grand. It was some of the other stuff that was just a complete joke, I'm
casting back to the very angry 16-year-old playing Rage Against the Machine while role-playing as a werewolf. It's like, oh man. Same haircut, actually. That's what lockdown will do to you. But, yeah, okay, this is sort of formative year stuff versus pedigree again. I don't know. I like to vote with my gut, and the moon is full.
Typical werewolf.
Difficult. Let me gaze into the mirror and see what the spirits say. I'm gonna sort of step aside on this one for a moment. Who's got a definite answer?
Yeah. I think it's going to be Star Wars because of just the weight of what it accomplished. Werewolf is a fantastic game, but it was a game of its time, which is weirdly becoming its time again. Mm-hmm. Like, as I watch the world, I'm like, yeah, we're coming back around to that. Like, because there was a time people said, oh, look, it's very irresponsible to be running around hammering spikes into trees so that, poor lumberjacks out working in the Amazon, chainsaw into it and their chainsaw explodes and kills them. That's not cool. But there are like a lot more militant people who I think were doing permanent damage to the planet with good cause, and are willing to do more extreme stuff to try and back it down.
It's a hell of a time to run Werewolf, certainly, and it's never seemed like a more irrelevant time to run Star Wars, given that the franchise itself is pretty much run into the ground.
Oh boy!
Oh yeah, the takes only get hotter because the planet's burning.
So, Star Wars is the only regular role playing game I'm in at the moment, tabletop wise, and we were using the new system, the Fantasy Flight Games one, and oh god, it looks so good on paper, and it just isn't. So we've gone to Fate. So I would say that Star Wars West End Games has not been bettered in terms of an official Star Wars system. There was so much material for it. The books were good. So my vote is for that.
Scar, where do you land on these?
This is another close one for me, and that's mainly because of a little bit of ignorance. I'm not ignorant of Star Wars, and it'd be very difficult to be starting gaming in the early 2000s without being exposed to White Wolf, but I've never actually played either system. I know there are legions of fans who will hop to the defense of both of them, but neither of them ever grabbed me too strongly as the go-to for a given thing. But
from a mechanical point of view, Shane, neither of these are great.
Yeah. I would say that in terms of, which if I had to choose at a con to play one or the other, I would go with Star Wars, just to sort of, wallow in, some happy nostalgia of, oh God, I don't want to become one of those fans, but some original trilogy Rebel Alliance nostalgia is a little strong. And Werewolf, I can certainly see playing in a good game of Werewolf, but you'd have to pick your people wisely, because, White Wolf.
Oh, sure.
Sorry.
White Wolf is many different things at many different times. Okay, so let's do a quick talk here. Hands up for Star Wars.
Me.
Yeah, me.
Okay, then I can safely dissent and say that for so many right-on reasons that it's time to rock the system. I guess we're gonna have to go with the guys who are still putting fascists on lunchboxes here. Sorry, folks. Okay, Star Wars, take it.
I would play Werewolf in a heartbeat if someone said, "Hey, let's play some Werewolf the Apocalypse," and they're going to do a new version of it, and there's a computer game coming out, so I'm well able for revisiting this one. But it's for me, it's the historical weight of what D6 Star Wars accomplishes.
Yeah. So, is there a better cinematic setting for role-playing games that's come out than Star Wars?
Than Star Wars. Like, do you mean mechanically, or do you mean
just as a place that you want to play a role-playing game in?
I think Star Wars is very strong, despite the films in some ways, because the D6 one certainly spent a huge amount of time exploring places for players to go and have fun, and the whole idea of running a tramp freighter and just being like that was a huge game style for people, especially around in the 80s, where like Elite still had a big real cultural hold. And people going, actually, I'm running a tramp freighter, and that's my character, and I'm doing... Like, there was a book which was one of their best books, which was Tramp Freighters, which was just about being a low-level smuggler, doing little jobs, and what would be, kind of... How would you make money? Like, do you ever really make money? Do you ever really get out of debt, And there was a lot of ideas about that, like, really, really cool stuff. They did stuff with huge amount of stuff with the Bounty Hunters Guild. And, like, there's tons of different style of game there. And, like, it's a very fertile setting, much more fertile than just the films.
Okay, well, we've established the primacy of the Star Wars juggernaut yet again. So, with no bitterness in my heart, let's move on to the next bracket.
Well, this is going to be round 2 for the White Wolf fans, because now we have Changeling. Again, I believe I've put in both Changeling the Lost and Changeling the Dreaming into one category because I'm a Philistine. And they are up against the seminal anime RPG, Big Eyes, Small Mouth.
Oh, Christ.
Oh man, this is one for the weirdos, isn't it?
This is a weird matchup because you've got two profoundly strange RPGs. Like, Changeling is the weirdest of the White Wolf RPGs, right? For one reason alone. First edition Changeling sold you all of your character's powers in booster packs. Random booster packs.
Ahead of the curve there.
Like, does anyone remember that?
Never got
that was how they used to do it. They literally sold booster packs, and you open them up, and you got like effectively power cards in it. That like, this is my disciplines or my stat bonuses or anything like that. That was how they sold them in first edition, and it was like that nearly killed the game.
That's completely mental.
Yeah, but why wouldn't you? It's like booster packs, man. They're the thing the kids want.
So you're talking about like cards the size of playing cards, or like A4?
Yeah. Huh. Yeah, they were called cantrip cards, and they've actually put, for the 20th anniversary, they put them. They put together here. You can buy all the cards. They're on this one, But like this was the these were like White Wolf put them out in 1995, and they were here like, yeah, here's where you get your here's where your powers and stuff are. And I'm not sure they were required, but people hit the roof.
With happy or sad?
Really, like, super annoyed.
Okay.
Like, super annoyed. Like, I'm not playing this game annoyed. This was at the height of WoD fanaticism. And they were going, I am not playing this game. This is ridiculous kind of,
Put it into context for us.
So, was it done that way to really easily integrate with a LARP? So that you could just whip out your powers on convenient cards from your breast pocket or something?
If I had to guess, it was they were in 1995, right? Is the heart of the CCG boom. It's after Magic has exploded, and every asshole is putting out a card game, and they crashed eventually completely, like horrifically, and they all got kind of cancelled. And I think this is people seeing an overcrowded marketplace and going, me too.
Dear.
And that was the, it was like people don't talk about it because it's like
too traumatic.
I don't
I
like
bought
to
too many
mention
Spellfire
that
cards,
particular
man. Can't go back.
that particular the cantrip cards, but it was integration. Like, it's been done a couple of times since that, but no one's ever had the balls to do it like that.
Fair enough.
Like no one's had the just the sheer
I can see it being fun, like at before a LARP, when you get together with your clan and you start exchanging your duplicates to represent what your character has, and I can see it being convenient then. I don't think there was ever a massive changeling LARP scene though.
No.
So then there's on the other side of this equation is Big Eyes Small Mouth, the beloved role-playing system for bearded men who want to play schoolgirls.
Well, that's the thing, system, isn't it? It's not really a complete role-playing game. It's a system, right?
Well, yeah, they've used versions of it. They tried pushing their tri-stat system in a couple of places. In fact, in a callback to the previous episode, there actually was a tri-stat version of Game of Thrones for a while.
Huh.
Yeah.
Okay. I kind of feel like Changeling might take this one for me because just familiarity. I've never laid eyes on Big Eye Small Mouth. I watch some anime, but none of it that would sort of fall within the parameters that Big Eye Small Mouth appears to be selling itself on. And I reckon there's plenty of other systems that do most of the things I want to do better. But Changeling, just mad, weird, another classic 90s oddball, bit of a Joy Division, Smashing Pumpkins sort of freak show. But I'll give it to them.
Okay. This would have been an easy one for me a few years ago. But in the time since, A, I've matured, and B, I've heard not so great things about the company that makes Big Eye Small Mouth. I don't say it, in theory I shouldn't let, real world economic politics, colour the product itself, but I
There's
can't
no
help
rules
it.
here. We're making up our own criteria.
But also, as my gaming tastes have gone on, I've sort of soured on the generic RPG that Big Eye Small Mouth was trying to put itself as. And let's be honest, Besem was never the strongest mechanically. It was very much in the vein of the point-buy superhero game and suffers all of the problems there. I think have I told on the podcast the anecdote of the person who was making an anime character for a game I was running, and they accidentally make themselves able to turn the entire universe into cake?
600 episodes, folks. It's there in the archives. Link in the show notes. Shane, I don't know, can we find it? Do you recall that far back?
I can't remember when. I just checked if I have told that story before, but...
Well, perhaps that was the entirety of the anecdote.
There you go.
In which case, we're fine.
Where are you landing? I've got a strong sense of it, but I do like to be sure. I
feel like at this point, I would be more interested in trying out Changeling as a new thing for me than I would be for going back to Big Eyes and trying to beat it into a semblance of normality so I could run some wholesome anime out of it. I feel like I feel like that would be my way I'd be swinging right now.
Definitely not an evil robot, Shane. How do you feel about all this?
Right. I didn't realise that I had some kind of affection for Changeling. I thought I didn't really know anything about it, but I've played a few like one-shot LARPs of it, I guess. And while it initially seems it's kind of opaque and a bit difficult to get into because there's a lot of like World of Darkness style capital letters, like what is a Seelie court and how is that different to Unseelie and what's a red cap and all that kind of stuff. And like you've got all these opinions that your character has pre-formed just by finding out what caste or whatever it is somebody else is from. But it is actually really good and interesting and a bit different to a lot of stuff. Like there's not a lot of games that are that you'd kind of put in the same genre as it. It's maybe Nobilis and that kind of thing, but they're rare. Besem, I do like what it's trying to do, but I don't know that anime as a genre is unified enough to have a single rule set to cover it. I think maybe the likes of Mechton Zeta to do like an anime style giant robot game was a better approach to doing generic rule sets that way. So I'm going to go with Changeling just because it's interesting.
Right, pick it. Slay this one for its own, or are you already decided?
Oh God, I think I'm going to have to go with Changeling just because Besem was never terribly good. It was an interesting idea, but it was never terribly good. Besem D20 was a particular little weird abomination. But this is not this is two low ranked teams having a fight.
Right. Okay.
So it's
in this case the weirder with the tail and horns takes it, and we move on.
Okay, so this one's going to be interesting since Liam isn't around this time, and he will no doubt be shaking his fists in fury at us. But this time we are talking about Deadlands versus... Oh wait, no, this is going to be an easy one. Sorry, I forgot about the other... Okay, so this is Deadlands, the quintessential Weird West cowboy game done with its own original system and with Savage World system. And
with D20 and GURPS.
Oh yes, those as well, that's right. Versus the great implacable juggernaut of the White Wolf second tier, Promethean.
Oh, okay. Damn it.
Deadlands. It's one of my favourite RPGs. Deadlands.
I hope
Promethean, like...
let's give Vita his head here. Riff.
Absolutely. Deadlands is one of my favourite RPGs. It's a weird, very strange setting. It annoys some people a lot because of certain elements of the backstory, which have mostly been removed now at this stage. It's a fantastic kind of horror heavy setting. It struggled with its rule set at times a little bit, but the flavour of it's marvellous. So when you play it, you're going, this isn't terribly good, but it's tons of fun if you play the original edition. And the Savage Worlds one, Savage Worlds does what it says in the tin, fast, furious, fun. It's a genuinely great RPG, which is a ton of people will have great memories about it. Promethean is the game where you play... basically when you play
Frankenstein's monster, is it?
Frankenstein's monsters, yeah.
So you managed to find
it's any created kind of a fuel, like if you're made by a horrible or a horrible monster, or you're made by a mad doctor, or you're made by a person trying to bring someone back from the dead, this is what you get. But Deadlands, it's just so much weightier. It's Deadlands. Deadlands.
Let's seek some balance here. I mean, there's two sides, of course. So, Evil Robot Shane, any affection for the glowering golems or the ghostly cowboys?
Okay, I think I haven't played Promethean at all, which isn't a great start for that. And I like the sound of what it's trying to do, but like at a certain point, the World of Darkness thing of these people hang around in groups and go on adventures together starts to get a bit thin. And I think that Promethean might be kind of falling into that category of, like, it's just a bit contrived that you can make an adventuring group out of a load of Frankenstein's monsters. I don't know, maybe it justifies itself well in its own fluff, but not at face value. Deadlands, I love. It is the game that I've run the most of. Now, like, it is certainly not without its problems. Like, when it tried to expand too much and and tried to do too many things. Like, it had kung fu, and I think the steampunk thing got overdone. And when it starts talking about things that aren't zombie cowboys, is just like, don't do that. Focus on what you're good at. But what it's good at is amazingly good. Like, I've never played another game system that that's so well elicited the flavor of what it was trying to do. Poker chips and cards and 5D12 and all that kind of stuff. It was great. Just so much fun to play, and you can kind of do a lot of different things with it within its focus of what it is good at. Like, you can really emphasize the horror aspect, or it can be more cowboy western or comedic, depending on what you want. I love Deadlands. Yes, Deadlands definitely.
Okay, I mean, there's a lot of wavering opinion there, but it seems that maybe we're going to have to go over to Scar to sort of see if we can steady this ship. Is there another side to this? Anything to be said for Deadlands?
Promethean is what I like to call a good idea. It is a good pile of ideas. It is interesting. I had an interesting time reading through the Promethean rulebook that I got. I don't think that just having a whole bunch of ideas in the book makes an RPG, though. I didn't feel compelled to run a game or, try out, some Promethean NPCs if I ever was to run a White Wolf game. It is an interesting read. Maybe good as a supplement, but I wouldn't consider it an RPG that is necessarily playable. Deadlands is sort of designed to be playable and evocative from the get-go. It just has... It also has an awful lot of weird, discordant, interesting ideas, but it marries them so much better. They all sort of fit in the paradigm of, this is the Weird West. We have gone from the the order that we knew into the unknown of, not just the Western, future Western states, but also the future in the world of Ghost Rock. I just see Deadlands as having just so much more potential for games, and I'm not enamored of the cowboy setting, or Hell on Earth, or was Weird Wars? No, that was a different game.
No, but there was one in space on like a space colony.
Yeah, but I just see, I could definitely see myself playing any number of Deadlands campaigns, and very likely each of them would be different. It's just got a natural usability to it, and even if you're not using the rules in the original rules, or you're experimenting with different rule sets or stuff, I think you'll...
No, don't do that.
Okay, it's pretty clear that you've got
needs.
Sort of,
but I do see Deadlands.
Yeah. Okay, you're edging towards Deadlands. Very good.
I think. Mick, once again, are you going to dissent?
Well, I've two questions. I'll direct one to each of the Shanes. So, old sexy Shane, D12s. You mentioned D12s. Does it have a lot of D12s in Deadlands?
It uses all the dice.
Okay.
So sometimes you'll be rolling some D4s, sometimes you'll be rolling some D8s, etc. Yeah, okay. It's great. And, that is a great thing about it.
New sexy Shane, Prometheus. Is it Deadlands?
It's not really Deadlands,
okay,
now.
Perfect. My vote is for Deadlands. Let's go.
This seems like it should have been a 30-second decision, and yet it's taken us 5-10 minutes.
Well,
this must be why they call him Savage.
That's life.
On.
We've been at this for half an hour, and we're 8.
Well,
okay.
Well, stop
All right,
agonising
let's speed
over
it
your
up
decisions then.
Turn
All
it
right.
up.
Oh, wow, this is fun. This is good.
Okay, next
the
one.
knives right now.
This is going to be another easy one. So, on one corner, we have yet another favourite of Liam's, the venerable Ars Magica. A game which I'm pretty sure has had 6 editions in the time that D&D had 3. But yeah, a popular game of wizards in a slightly more medieval-inspired medieval times, and the innovation of troop play, where the members of the group can take turns GMing. And it is up against Wolfrup 3rd edition. The infamous Fantasy Flight experiment in adding custom dice and weird board character sheet token stuff to the Warhammer Fantasy formula.
Okay. Evil Robot Shane. Any love for these two old knockers?
Well, no,
No, actually, I don't
Wolfrup
have a lot of
is-
emotional investment in either of these. I like innovation, and they both innovated in their own ways. But also, I dislike innovation because often it's crap. So if I'm convinced by other people that what they tried to do with Warhammer 3rd Ed was not good, then I will vote for Ars Magica.
Okay, it's up to us to convince him then.
Let's go to you, Shane. Other Shane. Shane.
Ars Magica is a really cool idea for an RPG. I've never played it. I played a lot of Wolfrup 3rd Ed. It's had some tremendously interesting ideas that didn't action perfectly. Like the cards, you had to buy them, but once you bought them, it was actually fabulous. It was very difficult to add another player to your game. You had to buy an extra, basically, effectively player set of cards. But then once you had them, it was actually really good for new players to learn how to make an attack, because they just read the card. They rolled the dice in the card, they referred to the results on the card, and they got the results of their attack. It was a little difficult to track NPCs, because they'd all have their own cards as well, and they needed to have their wounds tracked. And if there's multiple NPCs, you need to kind of track them all at the same time. It was a bit of a pain. They needed a redesigned sheet there. It would have been a really good RPG with a 2nd edition. Well, sort of like a 2nd edition of 3rd edition.
A 3.5.
And they kind of did that with... They kind of did that with the dice one from Star Wars FFG, but they missed a couple of tricks that were actually really good in Wolfrup. They cut too much out of it. And they didn't fix the problem of offense scaling way better than defense. So yeah, I would probably go with Wolfrup, though if someone had a strong... If Ars Magica won, I would also not be annoyed, but I'll go with Wolfrup 3rd Ed.
Okay. I think 3rd Ed Wolfrup there was a backlash, certainly, as it brought in all these new crazy elements that people weren't quite ready for, and I think it has been proven to have been relatively right. So we're in backlash territory. I really liked the dice system that was introduced with Wolfrup, and Fantasy Flight have kind of kept up in their Cortex system, or is it Genesis? I can't remember. Genesis system.
Genesis.
And it's carried over into Star Wars and things like that since. And I'm quite fond of that sort of interpretive dice pool stuff, but custom dice obviously still turn people off. Ars Magica, it's venerable, it's blah blah blah, but I don't play it. I don't know anyone who has played it. Maybe done a
Liam
on the show, and ranting here, and I'm quickly winding my way up to Wolfrup 3rd Ed. So have you got a strong affection for either, Scar?
I don't want to be that guy, but it's more of an anti-affection for 3rd Ed, and I'm not even that huge a mark for Wolfrup, although the stuff I've seen for Wolfrup 4th Ed has really, really endeared me to the old classics again. That came out wrong. Well, anyway, we'll work out our feelings in Wolfrup when we'll see if it comes up on the list, won't we? But for me, Ars Magic just seems to invite so much more interest. It's like it's got this very different take on everything. Not just the whole troop style play, which is a bit of an experiment in and of itself, but is a important step in the development of the storytelling, everyone gets input approach to role playing, but just the setup, I think, of Ars Magica is really interesting because it's harkening back to not to fireballs and magic missiles like D&D, but trying to harken back to how spells worked in the mythology of the Middle Ages, and it's puts in the work to place mages as an element of that world, where it puts I just the idea of a medieval setting where everything that they believed was true in the medieval times is actually true is just fertile ground, even if it is, from what I understand, somewhat of a lower energy game where a lot of it will be negotiating with nobility and doing relatively mundane investigations around towns and villages. It just seems more appealing to me than to attempt to play Wolfrup again, but with a whole bunch of accessories. I don't know, maybe I've just gotten very cynical in the last couple of months, but I found that...
What's your vote, Shane? What's your vote?
I'm going to vote Ars Magica, I think. Okay. I just feel it's more...
So, where are we there? Is that 3-1 or is that 2-2?
Well, I think other Shane was still wavering.
Yeah, so my new sexy namesake makes a very compelling case there for Ars Magica, which I like, but ultimately it's coming down to the fact that you've convinced me that 3rd edition Warhammer was the progenitor of Fantasy Flight Star Wars, and Fantasy Flight Star Wars gave me a pain in the face, so Ars Magica.
Alright, dice time?
Okay.
2 for... Okay.
Who wants to roll then?
Can they be custom dice?
Well, we'd have to sit here interpreting, and that'll take too long. So we're just a straight D2 or D4 or something.
What? No, each party should roll 7d12, and whoever gets the lowest total.
We've streamlined the process. Who's got a dice to hand?
High Wolfrup, low, okay. Ars Magica. I just tidied my desk.
I've got 4 fudge dice here. That's all that will happen.
Right.
I can roll.
See, okay. Liam handled the dice rolling last time. Oh, here we go.
It's low.
Alright, then it is
okay.
Ars Magica.
Liam, you've been saved.
2 minuses, a plus, and a blank.
Okay, Ars Magica takes it.
Okay.
Next bracket.
Alright, let's move on. This is a bit more of an interesting one. This is old versus middle-aged. Sorry, this is a youthful upcomer versus a middle-aged veteran.
Okay, which ones are they?
Cool, it's like you and me.
A little bit. This is...
But they're both sexy.
This is the new game out a couple of years. The Tales from the Loop RPG. A sort of Stranger Things inspired game, but with a bent of, I believe it's Swedish, or it's a Scandinavian RPG originally.
Flavor, yep.
Yeah, so... Versus Mage, the Awakening /
Oh, bugger.
The other one.
How did World of Darkness get so many entries on this list?
This is even after me combining, old WOD, new WOD into one. Is like we still end up with the 5 big.
I have a lot of fondness for Mage. Those is the first RPG I ever played and badly warped me as a result. So I'm going to go for Mage here. Tales from the Loop is a fine idea for an RPG. It's sort of a little more minimalist, little more cut down. Tries to tell some cool stories. That's great. Fabulous stuff. But like Mage was the first RPG I played. I have a huge amount of fondness for it, so I'm going for Mage.
Who wants to go?
Mage is also it's the first non D&D RPG that I played, and like I remember specifically having my mind blown by. I think it was also really my first exposure to the genre of urban fantasy. So there was that was happening in the modern day, and then the fact that you could that there was no Thaco, that blew my mind. So I'm voting for that because I don't know what Tales from the Loop is.
Never watched Stranger Things?
I did. It was all right.
So okay. I have, as a graphic designer, I have a fondness for very nicely laid out books. I've had a look over the Tales from the Loop book that came out last year, year before, and it's a couple of years ago. The system's been around for a little while. And Mage, it's got a long pedigree. It was the second World of Darkness game I ever ran or played. But its attempts to create a sense of a magical world sort of fell flat in its factionalism and its kind of maybe too many rules. The system is interesting as a magic system goes. It's very freeform and very cool. But Tales from the Loop for me represents something really intriguing in an RPG book. It's distinctive, stands out from the pack much more in its day than Mage ever did back in the 90s. It's beautiful, which of course is a part of the print process, just getting better. So I can't really give them points there, but they do try where others fail. It also has this really interesting form and format where it's asking people to play characters who are in their formative years. They don't have spells and magic powers. They barely have bikes and walkie-talkies, but they're still expected to take on a world that is dark and strange and dangerous. And because of the conceit of the book being that the mystery at the center of the loop can be one of 4 different things, you get this huge replayability. You almost get 4 seasons of a Stranger Things-like TV show game in this one little book. And I think there's an awful lot going for Tales from the Loop. I think it's going to be a classic in years to come. I think it's going to be a game that inspires an awful lot of people. So I'm going to give it to Tales from the Loop. I think it's a strong... And there's a TV show on Amazon you can check out if you want sort of slow, weird, placid TV. And I think this kind of has the potential to be a slow, weird, placid game that is sort of like a Tales from the Unexpected or a Stephen King horror about kids trying to solve a mystery. There's a gentle, interesting game here that doesn't sort of rely on angst or fashion to sell its point. Cool Barbarian King Scar. What do you think?
This is a tough one for me because...
Can we make that the title of this episode?
God damn. I don't like urban fantasy in any flavor. I have very much been turned off it. And not the insignificant part, by White Wolf Games. And their insistence on trying to sexy up a huge amount of the social problems of our day. And play around with them like they're interesting and cool as opposed to depressing. So I'm sort of not terribly comfortable with either of these. Mage to me feels a little indulgent. It plays around a little bit too much with the "you're special because" trope, which I'm very suspicious of. Tales from the Loop is... I would say it's agreeable, but more difficult to play. It's like it requires me to put myself in a sort of, to be a child and therefore inherently vulnerable and, a little isolated from society. I would say if it came down to it, I'm going to go with Tales from the Loop this time because I feel I should challenge myself.
We have a dice off.
And I feel like Tales would be a more fulfilling thing to go for, but... If you caught me on a different day, I might slide back and go for Mage. But right now I'm going to go for Tales.
I think we're tied, are we?
That's another tie.
Right.
Yeah, Mage high, Tails low.
2 pluses, a minus, and a blank. That's high.
Okay, then Mage takes it.
Mage it is.
The dice.
What's the origin of Tales from the Loop? Is it the role-playing game?
No, it's a Scandinavian art book that depicts sort of kind of pre-teenage kids in a landscape, a Scandinavian landscape full of odd machines. If you think something like the sort of stuff you see in Half-Life 2, but married to kind of that 80s aesthetic. And then there's like dinosaurs kind of peeking out from places. It came from an art book, inspired a design team who made the game, and that has gone on to inspire a TV show. It's one of those multimedia entities that we were talking about 20 years ago, finally sort of happening.
Yeah.
Well, I never.
well having a look at.
And if you
next
weren't
bracket.
sick of White Wolf already, we have another one. This one's the big Mac Daddy of the whole thing. Vampire, the Masquerade
Versus
/ Revelation.
Versus
Nobody cares.
Vampire versus.
Versus Mutants and Masterminds, a early 2000s edition of the point by superhero RPG.
Wow.
This is probably the superhero RPG that I have the most exposure to. I never got into the likes of Hero System or Champion.
Mutants and Masterminds is an
and
okay
it's
system. It's all right. Vampire has ranged from okay to terrible, almost beyond human belief, with fundamental flaws of mechanics. Vampire is tremendously influential, however, but I enjoy Mutants and Masterminds more, so I'm going to go with Mutants and Masterminds. It is, but it was the first
Isn't
one of the
Mutants
glut
and Masterminds
that actually,
a D20 game?
that actually significantly changed stuff.
No, but nothing. But nothing. There's no excusing one's way out of
The
that.
third one is less D20. Third edition is less D20.
Okay.
Now, I don't have enough rude words to express my opinion on the D20 thing that happened, and like Vampire, while it is a massive mess, I think the idea at its core and when well executed is just glorious, and it's such a good setting for a LARP. I don't know if
that can count.
doesn't really count for the purposes of this.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you've seen what the criteria are. There are none. How did it make you feel? Just,
Yeah.
do you like the cover?
Okay. Well, yeah. So, like the first time I stepped into a proper vampire LARP and realized that instead of the LARP culture where I'm living at the moment is very much about ongoing games, and you submit your downtime and stuff happens then. So instead of like the important things that you're doing being like invading somebody else's country, it's walking away in the middle of a sentence that they're saying. Like that's the massive thing that you can do to really hurt them. I love that. It's such a good setting for a LARP. So Vampire for me.
Okay. Shane the Younger.
I would have to go to Mutants and Masterminds for this one. As I say, it was my first real superhero RPG. I looked at it, I saw it is flawed, like most point-by superhero games. It is very much an exercise in self-restraint, and please do not break the system. Okay, I won't. But I just find it a lot easier to imagine myself running a successful Mutants and Master games than getting one drop of enjoyment out of playing a vampire game. I consider Vampire to be... Oh, I'm going to make so many enemies. I just can't imagine a world where I enjoy, playing a bloodsucker, playing a horrible monster that kills people because it's sort of funny and it lets me take extra actions with my potence or whatever. Yes, I
No, but
deliberately
it
got
doesn't
that one.
make you happy. It makes you sad.
Okay.
You stand over your own grave holding a black rose and shedding a single tear.
I should stop before I summon a lynch mob.
You're coming down, but I know what you don't like. But Mutants and Masterminds, what would you say in its favor?
It's a fun, flexible game that lets you run some superhero shenanigans. It has enough flexibility to go from, being a replacement for Big Eye Small Mouth in your anime game to being 4-color superheroes to being gritty superheroes. I just think it has enough of a strong base that I can get my head around it and I can make what I want with it. It wouldn't be my go-to for a lot of things, but if I wanted to run proper 4-color comic booky action, it would definitely be on my list of games I would want to try out for that.
It certainly excels there. I've had a smattering of experience with both. I tried Vampire LARPing and it didn't stick for me, so if we're going on feelings, What I would say is I'd look at these two and I'd sort of think about party composition. And for me, it's always made very little sense as to why vampires would associate at all. I know there's reasons in the background to do with courts and things like that, but they just don't tend to play well together historically. Whereas Mutants and Masterminds is almost better when it's played with a bunch of people who are making up their own favourite superhero, and there's absolutely no rhyme or reason. So you end up with something that looks like the Doom Patrol. But it's you guys playing at the table, and then the GM has to sit there and go, okay, well, I'm just going to have to throw the biggest, silliest problems at these people because that's what their skill sets are going to encompass. I think I play games more for joy these days than for the opportunity to be seen to shed a single tear. So I think I'm going to go with Mutants and Masterminds in this one. Sorry, Shane. I do know that vampires...
It's a travesty.
I guess I'm just a four-color kind of guy. Okay. Is that
all right?
Have we done it?
Get her
No,
done.
that's 7. We have one more round to go, and this is one of the. This is yet another classic, up against a very, very late comer. It is AD&D 2nd edition. The revision away from Gygax. I think it was Brian Menster. Or no. It was
the Shownotes.
Yeah, but this is 2nd edition. Came out, I believe, 1989. Not really a huge change from 1st edition, but it did bring in a new paradigm, and it was yet another step, an iterative step along the way
taking on this juggernaut.
Taking on this juggernaut is one that is only on this list at the insistence of several party members.
No.
Is newcomer
Hang on, Shane.
mech game.
Have we got AD&D
Lancer.
1st edition and AD&D 2nd edition on here? Is Basic on here?
Yep.
Yes. I
don't.
Oh.
All right, fair enough.
I
I'm just
don't
saying.
At the start of this, we wouldn't question.
Yeah, absolutely.
We had our chance. We got Lancer on the list. That's something we both campaigned for.
Yeah.
And now
I
we
didn't
find
put
it up
Basic
This is
against.
complete
D&D on the
nonsense,
list. I
which is
probably
exactly as it should be.
I probably should have put Basic D&D on the list,
Lousy
but I don't think I put it down
We're
here.
lousy.
Lousy in D&D's here.
We should have put D&D
No,
on
D&D,
once.
just one D&D would have been disaster. Just one D&D would have been disaster.
We've waded through all the goth emo bloody RPGs this evening, and now I find another bloody D&D waiting at the end of this mire, and it's up against my darling. This is a fix. Right, someone put this out of his misery.
I'll start.
Go on, you should.
As people know, I have done vast amounts of extremely shallow research into old versions of D&D and its progress through to modern gaming, and such research has actually left me pretty sour on 2nd edition. It was very much an iteration and cleaning up of 1st edition D&D. It wasn't a sea change, even though the people who were writing it really wanted it to be a sea change. Management sort of just told them to make 1st edition again, but slightly easier to work with, and they did. And it's that sort of disincentivizes me from recommending. I would play 1st ed before D&D before I play 2nd ed. I'll say that much. Lancer, though, I can't not love Lancer, even if it isn't exactly what I'd be looking for in a mech game. It's a little bit more out there. It is very much seeped like stewed tea in the art of the 6 Billion Demons guy who made all kinds of crazy looking mech designs for it. I can't not be on its side. I'm the mech fanboy. I feel that I have to go with Lancer in this one. It might not be the perfect mech RPG for me, but I'll play it 10 times before I play 2nd ed.
look
So
better.
AD&D is
who wants
a
to
very
take the next
prolific
shot at
edition
the
of
Titan?
D&D. Very prolific. It threw out a bunch of stuff. I believe a lot of big stuff sits under A&D's umbrella. Spelljammer. Yeah, this was the one that basically Dark Sun.
This was the settings edition.
It's
This was
tremendously productive.
Spelljammer,
In terms
Dark
of settings,
Sun.
this is probably the best edition of D&D in terms of setting. In terms of rules, it's okay. I think it's probably firmly middle of the pack. It's nothing shockingly good or nothing shockingly weird. That said, I really like Lancer. I think Lancer steals a lot from D&D 4th edition, some good ideas from it. It is actually a rock solid rules chassis that what you can do with Shane, like I'm seriously considering stripping out Lancer's combat and using it for a mech game. Like if I was going to run Mech Warrior or I was going to run Gundam or something, I would look at it and go, there's good stuff in here. Like there's a lot of more hacking in it than there's actually hacking as a big control element in it. Because if you want to play a controller, your mech's a hacking mech, which uses maybe it uses nanotech swarms or uses other stuff to basically hack your opponent's stuff. So I'm gonna go with Lancer in this, despite the fact that AD&D is a very very strong setting argument.
Right, I can't believe we got this thing on the floor and we're kicking it. Right, yeah, Owen makes some great points about how second ed ADD existed at a time when TSR were probably laying the foundations for the next 20 years of that company's settings, most of which are cruelly forgotten and under-supported in the current regime. If I see another D&D book set in Faerun.
Did you not see the Friday announcement for Friday?
I know, and I do have a soft spot for Icewind Dale, but come on,
It's
guys.
the terror of doing anything different when you're winning and you don't know why you're winning.
Interesting settings. So, scrappy underdog over the horizon, sending out electronic countermeasures is Lancer, which hasn't got a damn clue what it should do because the mech space is so weird anyways. But it's a gorgeous book, a really involved team. Yeah, I haven't had a chance to play with the combat, but like yourself, Owen, it looks like I might. I'm not wildly into that kind of anime mech aesthetic, but I do like that there's a mech game out there that looks like I can play it and I can run it and not be buried in charts and damage tables and heat exchangers and things like that. Look, D&D's going to have plenty of shots on this ladder, but Lancer only gets one, so I'm gonna root for the underdog here.
Okay.
Evil Robot Shane,
what do you say?
I hate D&D, and I hate fantasy as a genre. I hate levels and alignments and hit points and all of that crap. AD&D Second Ed is the first role-playing game I ever played, and I've played some extremely good campaigns of it, and I love it. It is the basic language that I have for communicating with other gamers. Like, I talk about Thaco and armor class lower is better, and dual classing is how you do two separate things. Like, it is my basic understanding of what gaming is. I cannot vote against it, and it tears me up inside. Lancer, I've never heard of, but like from my experience with mech games, so I was big into Heavy Gear, and
so
Mech Warrior is also very good. But like, the best bit of the game is not what happens in the mech. So all this talk about combat system and stuff like that, like it is important, but I'd want to know that it's actually got a very, very good setting, like Mech Warrior and Heavy Gear do. Anyway, I don't know what it is, so I'm not voting for it. So AD&D.
Okay.
Well, it's a principled stance, but it looks like we might just have taken a leg
A
off
massive
the
upset.
tonight, folks.
Yeah.
Wow! I'm so happy. And not because AD&D Second Ed lost, because I think like what a lot of Evil Robot Shane says is true. But I've got a big grin on my face because this little game that hopefully is going to at least get out of the early stages. Okay.
Of the 3 editions of D&D that we've put to the test so far, 2 of them are already out. Just to point out, fourth ed and second ed have been eliminated. First ed's gone through, and we have yet to hear from third ed and fifth ed.
So those are big hitters.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's
Speaking of big hitters, this hour-long episode of us rambling about nonsense has probably gone on long enough. We are halfway through the first tier of this elimination tournament, folks, and it might be a bit of a long haul, but I'd like to thank my duplicate from the past future for coming along.
Thank you. It's been great being back. Love it. And well done on keeping it going, by the way.
We can see.
See the next 600 holes.
Yeah. Okay,
Shane, you want to take us out?
Yeah. Folks, I hope we aren't spamming your inbox with too many of our inane natterings. And I hope that when you send the death threats, you leave a little tip for your postman, because, post servers aren't doing great these years. But otherwise, we will be back again with parts 3 and 4 of our first round with this goddamn behemoth. Eventually. Don't worry, this is all part of the plan, and we will also occasionally do other types of episodes, I'm sure. But anyway, for reporting in from our far too massive competition floor space, I'd like to report that for now, this party's over.
Thank you for listening to The Adventuring Party. If you'd like to leave us a voicemail, you can head on over to SpeakPipe and drop us a line. Or you can join us on our Discord server, where we keep the party going after hours. Otherwise, you can find us on Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, or Twitter. Or you can email the hosts at party@theadventuringparty.net. The Adventuring Party is released under a Creative Commons Attribution Non-Commercial Share-alike version 3 license. But you probably knew that already. We hope you enjoyed the episode, and look forward to seeing you back here next week. Goodbye.